This video is about lymphocytes and the lymphatic system. Lymphoma develops from cells in the lymphatic system. Hopefully the background information here will help you to better understand my video on lymphoma. Let's start with lymph. Lymph is fluid that surrounds cells everywhere in your body except the brain and spinal column. So lymph is basically the juice that most of your cells sit in. When you have a shallow cut or pop a pimple, the clear, watery liquid that oozes out is lymph. Much of your lymph is fluid that's escaped blood vessels. It makes sense then that the composition of lymph is similar to that of blood plasma. Remember, blood plasma is what's left of blood after you take out the blood cells. Like plasma, lymph contains salt ions, proteins, and clotting factors. Lymph can also contain fat absorbed from your food. Since much of the lymph comes from blood vessels, the body has developed channels, called lymphatic vessels, that deliver lymph back to the blood. The lymphatic system is like a system of gutters that direct fluid back to the main reservoir. Lymphatic vessels form a complex network, converging onto blood vessels near the heart, where they empty lymph into the blood. Along the lymphatic ducts are lymph nodes, about 600 of them throughout the body. Lymph nodes are encapsulated clusters of immune system cells, usually smaller than a centimeter, through which lymph can drain. Having immune system cells in the lymph nodes is actually quite clever. This is because as lymph circulates, it can pick up bits of invading organisms and deliver them to the cells in lymph nodes. The immune system cells in lymph nodes can then help mount a defense against the infection. Lymph nodes are kind of like police checkpoints looking for drunk drivers, except that they look for signs of infection. Most of the immune system cells in lymph nodes are called lymphocytes. Note that some lymphocytes also circulate in the lymph itself, and some lymphocytes are found in what's called extranodal lymphatic tissue, meaning that the lymphocytes are not wrapped up in a little package like they are in lymph nodes. They're just a bunch of lymphocytes clustered in tissue. Lymphocytes mature from stem cells in the bone marrow and are then released into the blood. The two types of lymphocytes are B cells and T cells. The T cells released from the bone marrow are actually still immature. The B cells released from the bone marrow are mature, but are called naive since they haven't yet encountered any signals of infection. B cells in the blood can travel to lymph nodes or extranodal lymphatic tissue and wait there until they receive a signal that there's an infection. This can trigger B cells to proliferate and become plasma cells, which produce antibodies. The antibodies can mark parts of invading organisms and can signal other immune cells to destroy what they mark. After an infection, some B cells also become memory cells. These remain in the body after the infection to be reactivated later if the same infection occurs again. In contrast, when immature T cells are released from the bone marrow to the blood, they move to the thymus. The thymus is a small gland just above the heart where T cells, and only T cells, mature. The mature T cells can then re-enter the blood and move to lymph nodes and extranodal tissue. In an immune response, T cells can be recruited to help kill cells that are infected by a virus or that are cancerous. Now, one organ that we've skipped over is the spleen. The spleen is in some ways like a giant lymph node. It contains many lymphocytes. The blood flowing through it delivers signals of infection to the lymphocytes. The spleen is also involved in removing old blood cells from circulation. In summary, we've explored the function of the lymphatic system and lymphocytes. Lymphomas are cancers that develop from lymphocytes, discussed in my other blood cancer clips.